Two guys in their early 50s with one dream: to achieve middle-aged sporting glory. This is the Missing Links Golf Show. Pilgrims, welcome back to the grand slam of podcasts, the Missing Links Golf Show. Andy Walker, how exciting is it to be here right now?
I love the segue, Mr. Hinks. That's awesome. But what a week.
Oh,
what a week in golf.
Just amazing. Absolutely amazing. And yes, we are, of course, going to unpack in this episode all of the action that took place on the beautifully manicured fairways of Augusta National last weekend. It's taken us a few days to pull ourselves together to be able to record this episode, but I don't mind that, because you know what? There's been a lot of podcasts that put episodes out straight after. Many of them have been very, very good, but I do like having had the chance to sort of sit back and process this a little bit before we go on and talk about it, Andy Walker.
Yep. Yeah. And that's exactly what it's taken. I feel it's taken a lot of processing. I mean, you know, we've talked about Rory before, and I think he's exceeded a lot of what our expectations were. I think we both struggled to see how he could win, certainly in a tight battle. I think we both felt as though he needed to be a long way in front, which at one stage he was.
and he needed it.
Let's face it.
He needed every one of those shots.
He was 5 in front at one point. But man, like I was lost for words. I mean, I think I put in that group chat we had with a couple of the Pilgrims that you know, was that Sunday, August 13, 2025, the most epic day in golf history.
A point that I do want to actually discuss as part of this episode, but I think, spoiler alert, I can't think of one anywhere near it, to be honest. Like, there's been some crackers over the years.
Yeah. I'm obviously Tiger in a 2019 Masters. I mean, you go all the way back to Jack Nicklaus in 1986. You know, that was one of the first Masters I ever watched live, and I remember watching. I mean, I was going for Greg Norman, obviously being an Aussie bloke, but to watch what Jack Nicklaus did over those closing holes, that was epic. And talking about Greg Norman, the Greg Norman meltdown in 1996, where everyone forgets just how good Nick Faldo played for his 67. You know, there's been some epic days certainly around the Masters, but I don't know, just the roller coaster around what happened to Rory and the weight of expectation and what he's been through over the last 10 years. I don't know. I'm struggling to find anything that really compares to it.
I don't think there is. And you have identified a few of the particular moments that have been talked about, and I've heard, you know, various commentators reference them over the course of the last few days after Rory's victory. And I think they're worth comparing. So if you look at, you know, some people have talked about the emotions that they felt watching Rory complete the slam on Sunday, and they compared it to Tiger's emotional win in 2019. Okay. Now, not taking anything away from Tiger's win in 2019, but I just think that they're completely different moments. I mean, Tiger had won everything to be won in the game of golf at this point. There was nothing. There was nothing left for him to achieve to prove himself to anyone.
It was cream on the cake.
Like it was a bonus and a surprise, and it was highly unexpected, and it was
sort of like Jack's 1986 Masters.
Exactly like that. And that's where I think these situations are so completely different, because they were fantastic. They were almost nostalgic wins, you know, like the resurgence of a hero that you had watched for many years just have one last flicker of flame sort of towards the end of their career. But the difference with Rory, the backstory to this event, you've got one of the greatest talents of our generation. I don't think anyone would argue with that. Who everybody...
In fact, I would probably say the greatest talent of our generation. I know there's a lot of good golfers. There's been a lot of good golfers over the last, you know, 10, 15 years, but certainly since Tiger, and you'd probably, put Tiger's time up until about 2008. But since then, since 2008 and Rory started sort of coming into the fore, certainly in majors, around 2011, I think that Rory, from 2010, or we could even say from 2008, is the greatest talent that we have seen in this game.
I absolutely agree with that. And I think that, people look at Rory and they would acknowledge that he's probably underachieved in his career. And
he's underachieved specifically in majors.
Yes, which is what people are measured on.
If you look at every other, I guess, barometer, benchmark in the game, whether it be FedEx Cup, won the Players a couple of weeks ago, how many, Race to Dubai's has he won? He's won however many tournaments around the world, 20-something, victories on the PGA Tour. I mean, the guy has, well, I wouldn't say overachieved, but certainly lived up to his potential in every other aspect
except
of the game,
for majors.
Except for majors, where he has had some spectacular falls. Yeah,
well documented indeed. And, the Masters has been the number one for those, and there's been times in the past, famously early in his
US
career.
Opens have been right
well,
up there.
no, and they have, like obviously Pinehurst. We talked about Pinehurst, and that was very much in the backdrop of this, and the fact that he's had opportunities not just to win the Masters previously, but he's had opportunities to break this major drought, which was 11 years since his last major victory, and for someone that's been so dominant, like you say, across all other forms and all other tournaments, Ryder Cups, FedEx Cups, all of these sorts of things, been world number one for so many, many times and many weeks, and just hasn't been able to close the deal. And this has been what I think makes the day so special, is the fact that there's been all of these moments and all of these challenges and all of these negative thoughts that could creep in, and I think did.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And yet
they had to have.
And yet he still got the job done. So with those with that as a backdrop and that story as a backdrop, the amount of pressure and everyone, and good pressure too, because everyone wanting him to win, but then that adds that whole weight of expectation. And been playing such good golf in the lead up that, this was considered an opportunity. And then to be leading into the last day, and so many people, myself included, saying things like, if he does not close the deal today, he never will. Because to add another failure onto that record would just be a whole nother level of demons into the future. So that pressure was immense.
Look, it's interesting that you say that, though, and I listened to Rory's press conference. It was about 26 minutes or so of his press conference. It's on YouTube if anyone wants to jump on and listen. But what Rory talks about in his press conference is just like he talks about resilience, and I love the word resilience. And coming back each year to Augusta with a positive attitude, and developing that resilience over time, and just that, and even during the round on Sunday, especially on the back nine, he did say there were a few times that he thought, maybe I've let this one slip, but then stopped himself and went, you know what, no. I've still got, and say after 14, he talked about after 14, but he talked about, okay, I've still got 15, and there's still a couple of holes after that, so I'm not out of it. I've still got a chance, and he said he felt pretty good on 15, and, obviously followed up, certainly 13 was, the third shot into 13 was one of the worst shots in Masters history from someone leading.
Oh, good grief, wasn't it?
And then
as was the second on 18.
Yeah, and then going to 15 and hitting one of the best shots in Masters history by a leader. And even the putt on 15 was probably one of the worst putts.
Yeah,
Like
it
it
was.
missed by a long way.
It
Like
did. It
his
did.
eagle
It
putt
did not scare the
missed
hole
by
at all. It was
missed by
very
a long
defensive.
way.
And that's a topic I'd absolutely want to unpack, because there was the absolute brilliance and the magician when under the pump and out of position, and then there was the frightened defensive play when the opportunity was there to clinch the deal a number of times, because you had that putt on 15, you also had the birdie putt on 16. That was similar.
Yeah.
And everyone, including Rory, surely at that point was thinking, "Oh my goodness, he's done it again. This is Pinehurst all over." But managed to get himself together. But Andy Walker, before we get too deep and too carried away, I do want to just wind us back a little bit to some conversations that we had prior to the Masters kicking off.
Yep.
The first one is a very, very big shout out to a man who can only be judged or only be described as an excellent judge of horseflesh, and that is the CEO of Australian Golf Digest, Nick Cutler, who called Rory for the win and even put his money where his mouth is and put a few dollars on Rory to win. So congratulations, Nick. Well done. You're obviously well placed to be running a publication like that, so some nice work. On the other end of the spectrum, Andy Walker, there's a little snippet out of our last episode that I would like to play for you now. And I think it's relatively self-explanatory, but I'm just going to share this clip with you and get your thoughts on it. This was a snippet that we talked about in episode 74. So strap yourself in. Can Rory do it and finish the Rory Slam?
No.
Thoughts, Andy Walker? You were quite definitive.
I did not think that he was going to be able to do it. I as much as I wanted him to, and I think I made that quite clear at different points, is that there's been a couple of times I haven't been a massive fan of Rory's behaviour. I think that certainly after the 2024 US Open, what he did, I think, on reflection, he may do something different. Maybe he wouldn't, but I don't agree with just bailing and not shaking Bryson's hand and not speaking to the press. However, I've always been a massive fan of Rory. I love the way he plays golf. I think he's great for the game, and I wanted him to win. I wanted him to win probably, well, maybe not as much as an Australian, but I wanted him to win as much as any other international player. Did I think he was going to? No, I didn't. And I am so glad I've been proven wrong.
Oh, absolutely.
So glad.
Absolutely. I think it's been one of the best things for the game of golf, to be honest.
100%.
There was another conversation that we had as well, which I'm going to share with you in just a moment, and it was about our favourite Australian, Min Woo Lee. And you may recall that we had a conversation about Min Woo's chances, because we were both, friend of the show, Min Woo. We were hoping that he would do well and bring the green jacket back to Australia. But I heard this one back, and I'd forgotten that we'd actually had this conversation. But when I listened to it again, I remembered, and it's quite interesting. So let me just play you this snippet, Andy Walker, and you can tell me what you think. But hopefully the chef can get in there and do some serious cooking.
Yeah, hope so.
A bit of Dr. Chipinski on the 18th on day 4. That'd be nice. Thoughts, Andy Walker?
He didn't.
He did.
Well, he did. He chipped in on the 18th. But
yes.
He didn't.
No,
obviously,
he did not do. He did not do some serious cooking. It was a tough weekend for Min Woo, but he did chip in on the 18th on day 4. So I'm going to call that as a successful prediction. And I wonder what odds we would have gotten on that if we'd actually put a few dollars on that. But anyway. That was a bit of fun. But honestly, what a performance. What a weekend. Couple of other names I want to throw at you as well, Andy Walker, and just before we get too deep into Rory's performance, because I think there's a lot that we can pick apart for what we can learn out of it. Nick Dunlap. Do you recall what happened?
No, 1971.
Yeah. And again, Um, the ironic part of this is last episode when we were talking about the average swing from best to worst in a season being 20 shots. Nick Dunlap's pulled that off in 2 rounds at the Masters. Yep. That's extraordinary.
Well, it's I find it really fascinating that he actually, that's the biggest swing from high to low in Masters history. No one's had that bigger.
Oh no, I think swing. It's the second. I think there was one they were talking about
really?
that was
I thought they said it was the. I
think there was one that was like 22 shots or something like that, but like from many years ago, sort of maybe mid 1900s. But still, you just don't see this, And credit to him though, to turn up on day 2 after shooting a 90, but also to shoot 1 under par. On the second day, that's you talk about resilience. That's some serious resilience.
Yeah, I think someone had a chat to him after was it Fred Couples maybe had a bit of a chat to him just to say,
I think
Masters,
so.
It's going to happen, and that sort of reset his mindset a bit, and he went out and obviously then shot 1 under. So I think I heard somewhere that one of the elder statesmen of the game actually had a chat to him.
I think you're right. I think Freddie did. I think Billy Horschel might have had a chat to him after the second round as well.
Yeah.
To kind of, give him the reminder that was a special performance, and it really was.
Yeah, right.
It really was. So anyway, Nick Dunlap, super effort on day 2.
Yep.
Unfortunately, day 1 kind of created a very big mountain.
I know what it's like to shoot 90.
It can happen.
Been there, done that.
It can happen.
Not in the Masters, but
No. Another name for you, Ludwig Oberg. Thoughts on Ludwig's performance?
He again looked really good for a certain period of time, and again in that group chat, I at one point I think it was when he holed the birdie putt at 15. I sort of went. I
thought he was coming
because Justin Rose had just bogeyed 17. And Rory started his collapse through 13 and 14, and Ludwig just stood up and made birdie at 15. And I thought, Rose and McIlroy are falling over, and Oberg's just made birdie. Anything can happen. And then he had played a bit of army golf on 18.
Oh, up 18. I mean, sticking his second into the lip of the bunker, came back to his feet. He was gone at that point. It was game over. Which was disappointing, but I do think once again Ludwig put in an outstanding showing for his second Masters, and both times he's been in contention late in day 4. He's definitely one to watch into the future. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. I mean, he still had a top 10 finish. What was it, 7th? I think he finished. So.
I think so. And to be honest, he should have finished in 3rd. Really.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what he did. Took triple, I think, down the last. So
I think it was, was it triple? Was it even a quad? No, I think it might have been a triple.
I think it was a 7. Yeah. And that in itself, I mean, 3 shots, on the 72nd hole,
I know.
and have run 7th.
I know.
I mean, he would have had to have been top 5.
Yeah.
And possibly, 3rd or maybe tie for 3rd if he didn't do that.
I know. It was heartbreaking. I mean, it was almost as bad as making a double up the 36th hole to lose to your podcasting partner host in the Macquarie Cup of 2024. But
I can see the similarities.
Yeah, it was very similar. Yeah.
I think so. Also read somewhere it cost Ludwig about $500K US or a little bit over, whereas that was a slightly different amount that we were playing for.
Yeah, about $500K different. But anyway, it won't happen again this year, I assure you, Pilgrims. The next name I want to throw at you just to get your thoughts on is J-Day.
Yep, looked good in parts. Just I don't think he ever really seriously contended. I don't think he ever looked like he was going to win it. He always looked like he was going to finish up there, but I don't think you could say he ever really looked like he was going to win. He was always sort of the outsider that potentially could come through, but never actually made the the clutch putts and, hit the clutch shots that he needed to actually get over the line. So, great performance. And I think we talked about J-Day before in was either one of the episodes or it might have been us personally. We talked about J-Day's chances, and, I was quite positive on the way he was playing and what his chances were. And I think that's, he performed exceptionally well, which has set him up potentially for, the next few majors and possibly even the next couple of years, because he's still only in his 30s. So I was only looking at that, a few months back, and I thought, because Adam Scott's now sort of approaching mid-40s, and I thought, J-Day's got to be, somewhere around 40. And then I looked and he was still only like 37 or 38.
Younger than you think.
Yeah, so he's still got a lot of time. Well, I wouldn't say a lot of time, but he's still got time up his sleeve to get one or two more majors under his belt.
No, I agree with that. I don't know. There's something about his performance in this tournament, which it was an outstanding performance. Don't get me wrong. I agree with you. He never looked like he was actually going to be contending for the win. He looked like he was going to be at all times sort of one of those top 5 support acts. I just don't know what it is, but it seems to be sort of lacking the X factor or something along those lines a little bit, that, some of the other guys have got the ability to really heat it up and take the tournament by the scruff of the neck. I'm not quite sure what that is, if that's power, if that's consistency, if that's just always the concern that the injury is going to raise its head. But I agree, it kind of never really looked like it was going to quite happen for J-Day. But another stellar performance, to be perfectly honest, around Augusta for him. He should be very, very happy with that.
Yeah, I think his putting wasn't on song.
He did miss a few, that's true.
Yeah. And interestingly, I do have the strokes gained data up here on my screen, which we can talk about a little bit later on.
We'll get to that.
And I've pulled that pretty much straight out of the strokes gained data.
Yeah, very good. We'll definitely come to that. I've got 2 more names I want to give you just to get your thoughts on. The next one is Bryson DeChambeau.
Yeah, look, again, contended and looked like he was going to, give it a good shake. But then I think 11. I think the second on 10. I think that was the one that probably just gave him sort of a little bit of doubt, I guess, and put a few doubts in his mind. And then to basically do the same thing on 11, but worse, obviously a much worse result. That was it for Bryson after that. But he just didn't
quite have
look
it
on his game.
No,
because I watched. I got up about 5:30 and I sort of caught up with him as Rory was hitting his second on 7. And you could just tell that Bryson, and like he shot into 7, which landed in the front bunker, you could just tell that he wasn't quite on his game. And he was always there or thereabouts. But I sort of felt as though, the 2 approach shots on 10 and 11, well, obviously 11 absolutely killed his chances. But I feel as though they were the 2 that really put him out.
Absolutely. I think that it was, I don't know. It's not necessarily the one that got away, but I think Bryson will look back on that 4th round with a degree of disappointment. Certainly when he was in contention, at the US Open at Pinehurst, and he just put the foot down and really made it difficult for anyone around him.
You know what I think it might have been?
Likely.
You know what I think it might have been? I think he was being too aggressive. That's my thoughts. He was going for the pin at 11. Now, knowing how Rory finished, he didn't need to. But I think he felt, because at that stage he was 5 shots behind. He dropped back to 9 under after his bogey at 10, and Rory was at 14 under. And he was 5 behind. So I reckon he stood over that shot on 11 and gone, I need to go for the flag here. And hit a draw, overdrew it, obviously, into the water.
Yeah.
Overdrew it into the water, but it landed pin high. or just short of pin high. So he was going for the flag. Whereas if he had have hit it as, I think even Jack Nicklaus said that he never actually hit it at the flag, especially when the flag was on the left-hand side of the green. He was always aiming middle to middle right of the green. And if he had done that, two putts, par, he would have, he still would have been, he would have been well and truly in it, especially after Rory's 13th and 14th hole. So I think if he went back, looked back, and you can never do it when you're in the moment, obviously, but if he looked back at what the result was, and that 11 under was actually the playoff score, given he was 9 under through 10 holes playing 11, I think he would have made some very different decisions rather than going for the flag on 11.
Well, this is one of the topics really about dealing with imperfect information during a round of golf, and like you say, his expectation at that point was probably that the winning score was going to be about 14 under, and so feeling that he had to make something happen rather than staying patient. In fact, even the commentary at the time, I don't know if you recall, but the commentators on the telecast were saying that I don't have a problem with Bryson's strategy on that shot. I agree that he had to go for it and make something happen. The issue was execution. And I think I agree with your assessment on it. I think it was a strategic error. I really do. I don't think that was the time to push. I mean, you've got some holes coming up. You get through 11, you get through 12. I mean, if you hit a good shot on 12, you can birdie it. But certainly you're happy to walk off there with a 3. But you get to 13, you get to 15, they're definite bogey, if not eagle opportunities. You get to 16, there's a birdie opportunity as well. There were chances for him to make a run, and it was not to that pin on 11.
Yeah, I think it was a strategic error too. I don't think 11, where the pin was placed, was the pin placement to go for that. Go for the hole. It just, you hit it, 20, 25 feet right of the flag. If you draw it in and it happens to just kick around to, 15 feet, great. If it doesn't, then you've got a 25, 30 footer for birdie.
Yeah.
That's it. End of story.
Yeah. And it was playing the hardest hole on the golf course all week. I just, I can't be convinced that was the time to press.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Well, interestingly, that was talking about Ludwig Oberg. That was his error last year.
It was.
And Bryson made exactly the same error this year.
He did. It was exactly the same. So I think the question, though, does Bryson ever win a green jacket?
I think he will. At some stage, I think he will. He's and I listened to a couple of commentators in the lead up to the Masters, and there was one in particular who said that he didn't think that Bryson's game suited Augusta. But I think he's proven, certainly, this week, that it does. And up until, the 11th hole in round 4, he was in the thick of it. So yes, I think at some stage, not Rory, Rory's already won a Masters, as we've covered. Bryson will actually win a Masters. I believe he will win more majors, and I think one of those will be a Masters.
Does he win next year? Or does Scotty keep his alternating victory in check and win this one?
That's such a tough question to ask 12 months out.
Well,
does Rory go back to back?
I'm here to ask the tough questions. Rory may go back to back. Who's to know? This could have really unplugged the floodgates. I mean, look what they're playing.
It's what we've talked about. It does his first major.
Oh, it releases him. This releases him big time. I think he's the most dangerous player on tour now after this result. It's a little bit like...
Interestingly, because he talked about that again in the press conference. He talks about that, this weight, this monkey that he had on his back, it's now gone. He does not have it anymore. And
he can now play freely.
I think it's just, his legacy is now set. He is with those 6 golfers, 5 other golfers that are, they're not just the greats and the giants of our game. That they are, if there can be immortals of our game, that they are the immortals of our game. It's such rare air that he is now in that I think that, it's potentially a just unshackling of the chains, and it could go anywhere.
Totally agree with that. That is an exciting prospect. But I agree. I think Bryson's got a chance. But like Rory on that topic, is it the PGA or the US Open that's at Quail Hollow this year? And that's that's a Rory course. I can't remember the last time he even lost a tournament there. So he's a strong chance. Got to be considered a very strong chance for more majors. And the Open, I think, is back at Portrush, back in Ireland. So again, these are big opportunities for Rory. But there's one more name before we get too far down the Rory path, 30 minutes in, and we've talked a lot about him already. There is one more name that I want to throw at you, and that is, of course, Justin Rose.
Yes.
And, what a human. I don't think enough good things can be said about Justin Rose and his family after this performance. And the simple fact that, he was beaten in a playoff. He's had every right to want and, that word deserve a green jacket as much as anybody else. He's led after more rounds of the Masters than anybody else to not win a jacket. He's now lost in 2 playoffs. He's 44 years of age. This could well be the last genuine chance that he's got at winning the Masters. Yet,
potentially,
all he did afterwards was absolute pure class. And stepped away from the limelight. And I think the testament to that is that we've heard very, very little commentary about Justin Rose in the aftermath of Rory's win, which to me is a demonstration of the class of the man. So if he hasn't won a green jacket, he's definitely, in my view, won all of the respect of the golfing world.
Yeah. And again, Justin Rose has got a press conference. I listened to Justin's press conference after the Masters, again on YouTube. It's about 16, 17 minutes. Go and listen to it, because there are some really pertinent things that he talks about. So he talked about, he was asked how much it hurt. Right. And obviously it hurts a lot, but he was asked how much it hurt. And he said, it does. You can't get away from it. But he said, what do you choose to dwell on? There's no point being despondent, was the word that he used. And he said, you have to look at all the good stuff that's got him into this position, not just the fact that, it hurts in the moment. And he said, basically, you go through a career, and I think the words he used was, you can't skip through a career without a bit of heartbreak. So you've, in order to win the big championships, you have to put yourself on the line, risk feeling this way in order to get the reverse. And
for sure.
I just, it's such a strong message, I feel, to have, when you're going through that in the moment. And look, on the 18th green, he said that he just, congratulated Rory and just said that, he feels, honoured and grateful to be here, right here on the 18th green when Rory's won the Slam. He said it's just an unbelievably big moment in golf. And he was just happy to be here to see it and to be in the moment and be part of the moment. And I think my opinion of Justin Rose has gone up dramatically as well. I think, and we talk about what Rory did in the US Open last year, after he lost the US Open last year, and what Justin Rose did after the Masters on Sunday. And I don't know. I think what Justin Rose did shows so much class. And I think that players have a responsibility to do what Justin Rose did, so that, they share the ups and downs with fans, because, fans ride the roller coaster with them. I mean, I don't think there's anyone that didn't ride that roller coaster on Sunday afternoon. And to hear from the players, for them to explain how they feel and to see the emotion, sure, they feel like they've just been punched in the guts, but to front up and to be able to still talk about it with those people that are following you and who admire you and who look up to you. I think that's a responsibility. And I know there's different viewpoints of that, and there's a couple of players within the game that don't agree with that. But without the fans, sorry, you don't earn the however many millions.
No, and that's exactly right. I think there are different viewpoints on that, and I don't necessarily want to dwell on the. I think Colin Morikawa had that conversation after the.
That was who I was talking about without actually mentioning it.
Yeah.
And I like Colin Morikawa. I think he's he's a great player, and he speaks he speaks well, and he's got a lot of good things to say. But yeah, when he says that he doesn't know the media or anything, I completely disagree with that. I think he owes the media and owes the fans everything. Because without the fans, they've got nothing.
There is no game,
and it's through the media that the fans get to experience. You can go there and obviously watch the golf in person, but the vast majority of fans get to experience it through the media. So yeah, sorry, Colin, you're wrong.
No, I don't disagree with you, but I do want to shed maybe another perspective on this as well, and that is the way that the media then treats the players that make themselves available in those situations as well. And I think
there are elements of the media that do. I don't think that's. I think making a blanket statement like that is probably a bit unfair on the good journalists, and just as there is, in every endeavor, industry, job, there's good and there's bad. There is in the media as well.
I'm leading somewhere with this, so bear with me.
Okay.
So,
right, I'll shut up and let you have your say.
So there is, and again, agree with all of that. I do think that the players need to make themselves available after the wins and after the losses, because it is the ups and the downs that show the humanity of the sport, the heartbreak as well as the joy. Yep. And you look at the joy on Rory's face on the image right behind you at the moment, it would have been equally as strong in the opposite direction had he have lost, and the heartbreak would have been possibly even stronger than the joy of winning. And I think that sometimes that should at all times be respected, that we want to have the window into those moments. We want to have the window into the soul. We don't necessarily need to, make the player feel worse in those moments. But what we do want to do is we want to have the understanding. There's a quote that I have been leading to, which is, I think it's one that's been kind of bubbling back up in my mind ever since seeing Rory win on Sunday afternoon, but also just thinking about him overnight and the potential to lose and what he would have faced losing. And I think this talks a little bit to the point as well about what it means for the players speaking to the press afterwards. Anyway, it's from Theodore Roosevelt. You may have come across this before, but it's a cracker. It's a bit of a long one, so bear with me. And it goes like this. It says, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions? Who spends himself in a worthy cause? Who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement? And who at worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither the victory nor defeat." It's a cracker.
I have actually read that previously, and yes, completely agree. Which is sort of where the point Justin Rose made, right?
Yes,
is that he's out there having a crack, and he's experienced. Well, he's got the US Open when all those years ago when he got up, but then he has, he's also experienced the hurt and the depths of despair. But one thing I do want to call out at this stage, talking about the emotion after Rory won. and the media and one guy who I want to give a massive shout out to is Jim Nance and the way he
Always.
conducted himself after Rory won. And when Rory was walking between the 18th green and, the scorer's hut, the Butler cabin, Jim Nance didn't say a word. He didn't need to. What the images on the screen just told the whole story. And for him to just have the, I guess, presence, the awareness, the professionalism within himself to know himself that, hey, me talking is not going to add anything to this. If anything, it's going to detract. And just to let the images play out and tell the story, I think that was brilliant. Like massive kudos to Jim Nance.
I can't remember if it was Richie Benner or if it was one of the other fantastic cricket commentators.
Richie. I know what you're going to say.
Yeah,
Richie.
Yeah. Whose mantra was always, if anything that I say in commentary must add to the moment, otherwise don't speak. And it was somewhat more eloquently put than that, but
that was the general.
Yeah, that was the gist of it. I don't think you're going to find. Other people may disagree with this, but in my view, certainly in golf commentary and probably in broad commentary more generally, I don't think you're going to find a more classy operator than Jim Nance.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with that.
He has a knack for the moment and certainly the ability to say it with, at times a lot of words, at times very few words, but they are always well crafted and they are always very thoughtful and very respectful. So I'm not surprised to hear that at all.
Yeah. And again, I've watched that again on YouTube, and just that walk that Rory had, and his emotions between, tears of joy and then laughter, smiling, being so happy, and then all of a sudden, like half a second later, he's back to tears again. Like just that range of emotion that he showed on that walk, like it was just. Yeah, I don't know. It was very cool. Like I've as I said, I've watched it a couple of times, and I sort of get, I sort of feel the moment, and I'm sure everyone does.
Oh, absolutely.
But you feel the moment,
and this is why I think, this is going to be remembered as one of the most iconic moments in golf history, if not in sporting history. It really is. It had everything. And the final day, we should get to the final day actually and some of the things that took place, because there were some extraordinary moments throughout that. You talked before about the artistry that Rory showed on certain shots, and without a doubt, I think that shot to the green on 15 from behind that little stand of trees, that big high roping hook around the trees to, what was it, about 6 or 7 feet. If that is not one of the most memorable shots in golf, and I know our little chat group blew up when that, when that shot was played, that was extraordinary. That's right up there with the Tiger chip in on 16, with the Phil Mickelson out of the trees on 15, I think it was, or 13.
13,
many years back, but that was extraordinary.
What I think really punctuates that shot is what happened on 13 and 14, and to go through, and especially 13. I mean, I still think about his third at 13, and look, again, he talks about it in the press conference, in that the ball ended up in a little valley on a slight upslope, and he said with this lie he normally hits it a little bit right. So he tried to allow for it, and he hits it a bit left. So he tried to aim a little bit further right to allow for it, and just hit it about 20 yards right obviously into the creek. So, to go from that, and then 14, was just sloppy. I feel like that was a bit of a sloppy bogey, even though he almost sort of made the putt. But to go from that to, one of the greatest shots in Masters history, it's just, I feel as though, I mean, Tiger's chip in and Phil's shot on 13, that they were great shots in isolation, right? But I think Rory's, from what,
From context.
preceded that
Yeah,
shot and
true.
in the context of the moment,
True.
I think that was, it was huge. It was massive. I don't think you can overestimate how big that was.
Yeah, I think there were some incredible shots in that round, like the ones that stood out to me. And in fact, the great man Sandy Wedge even did put this comment up on one of our Facebook posts. Was talking about that shot. He was also talking about the approach on 17 to set up the birdie on 17.
Yep. Yeah, that was huge.
Which was a great shot. Rory didn't seem to think he'd struck it perfectly, though, because he was shouting, "Get up, get up, get up," at the ball whilst it was in the air. Because he was on the uphill slope as well after a little bit of a weak Healy cut 3-wood off the tee. But
it's sort of similar to the shot on 10 because his approach into 10, which interesting was the same club. It was an 8-iron. He actually let go of the club in his follow through because, and I heard, and I don't know how factual this is, but I did hear it somewhere that he actually hit it out of the toe. And he thought it was going left. He thought he'd missed the green left, which is why he let go of the club.
Right.
But obviously it ended up in a pretty good position. And then he binned the putt, which again, I think that was a incredibly critical moment within the context of the game. And then the approach on 11 where it finished 6 inches from going into the pond.
Yeah.
I mean, that was Fred Couples-esque, when Fred Couples won on the 12th hole. For that not to go in the water, I think when that happened, I was sort of going, it's Rory's day. He's got to win from here.
Yeah, but we knew there were more twists and turns to come. The other shot that I think needs to be called out was his approach on the playoff hole on 18, that he obviously stuck stiff after Rosie had put a pretty good shot in there and nearly holed it, actually, nearly slam dunked it on for 2. But this was with the backdrop of Rory having almost exactly the same shot in real time and sticking it into the bunker. So, there's got to be some residual scar tissue off the back of that he was able to just step up and knock it stiff, which I thought was an awesome shot in the moment when it counted.
Yep. I did hear an opinion piece about the pairing that Rory had, obviously during regulation play, and the fact that he did seem to free up a little bit in the playoff. I felt, which being with his good mate Justin Rose, as opposed to his nemesis Bryson DeChambeau. There was an opinion piece that I read that said that they thought that he actually loosened up a fair bit because Justin Rose got to the 18th tee, walked across, shook his hand, said g'day, and went from there, and he sort of felt more comfortable within Justin Rose's presence than what he did with Bryson DeChambeau's. Now, I don't necessarily agree with it, but it was just an interesting opinion piece that I read.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with it. I'd maybe interpret it slightly differently, though, and I feel like neither Bryson nor Rory actually really got out of the blocks at any point in that last round. Rory obviously started with a double, handed the lead to Bryson a couple of holes in, who then handed it straight back. Neither of them really were playing to their best, and I almost feel like there was a bit of match play going on between the two of them, kind of with the expectation that whoever wins out of that duel is probably going to win the jacket. And they, possibly even dragged each other backwards a little bit as a result of that, and how they were, no doubt both thinking about what happened at Pinehurst and that this was a bit of a rematch and this this pairing was on again. So I think there's a lot of ways you can interpret it, and I think there's probably truth in all of them to a degree. And there was probably a bit of a sigh of relief for Rory as well, getting to the playoff and it being against Justin Rose, who I have no doubt that he would have felt better about seeing Rosie put the jacket on than he would have about Bryson putting the jacket on if he wasn't to win. There was a bit of that in there.
He did say again in the presser he did say that selfishly he was actually glad that it was another Euro that was in the
Yeah.
playoff,
Yeah.
which is a very interesting perspective to have in that moment.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many ways you can look at it, and these were all the backstories to the final round, right? It was basically US versus Europe Ryder Cup, because you had Rose, you had McIlroy, you had Oberg up there. So there was
But
that at play.
Live versus PGA Tour.
There was that at play as well, absolutely. There was the rematch of Rory v Bryson from the US Open. There was Rory v Rory. There was Rory v Augusta. There was Rory v, all of these other things. Rory v history.
Again, Rory did say that in that he said that his battle wasn't with anyone else. His battle was with himself. It was in his own head, in trying to stay present and trying to hit
For sure.
a good shot, and then going and hitting another good shot, and then the next one. So he said he didn't feel as though he was in a battle with Bryson or Justin. He was in a battle with himself, which I thought was really interesting, because that's what we all do, right? Like we all
golf.
go out there and have a battle within ourselves, and even Rory, with all his experience and he still goes out and he still battles himself.
Yeah, absolutely. That's golf, like you say, we all do it. It's week in, week out. It's at different levels with different things at stake. There's no doubt, but that's definitely golf. You want to get into the strokes gained data, I think, because you have done a little bit of prep on that. So I think let's go there before I've got a couple of questions as well, just to ask you before we wrap up this Masters review. But what have you noticed?
One thing that Rory talked about again in the press is that he knew that the guys who were up and around the lead and who won the vast majority of the time were the guys who excelled in the approach play, the strokes gained in approach play, and he was all week for the tournament number one in strokes gained in approach play.
Approach, okay.
Yeah, which I find quite interesting. In fact, Justin Rose was number 3.
Right.
Hideki Matsuyama, number 2.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Hideki, he never really goes away, does he, at Augusta?
No. Off the tee, Rory 7th in strokes gained.
Right.
Now, he did actually say that he felt as though he struggled a lot off the tee. He didn't quite know where it was going, and it wasn't just one way. He said he was missing at both sides, so he wasn't overly confident. But in saying that, the strokes gained tee to green, he was still number 1.
Yeah, his iron play was next level.
Yeah. So
Really
basically, tee to green, Rory, he was the best ball striker all week, which comes back to one of our myths from last week, I think.
Sure.
About short game. Strokes gained putting. Have a guess. Where do you reckon Rory finished in strokes gained putting?
I don't think he would have been top 5. I'm going to say he's about 10th.
43.
Yeah, right. Worse than I thought. But yeah, it wasn't good because like some of those short misses, again, a bit of an Achilles heel. And that's a mental thing. That's a head game.
Yeah. So 52 players made the cut.
Yeah, wow.
He was in strokes gained putting. He was ranked 43.
Wow.
Coming back to strokes gained putting and J-Day, what I said earlier on, J-Day was 22.
Yeah.
So that cost. So the greens on the greens really cost.
And he needs, with his game, J-Day needs to be a top 5 putter to be contending.
Yep. Justin Rose, number 7.
Yeah.
So best player on the green, and I was a little bit surprised by this. Bubba Watson, number 1 in strokes gained putting.
Only for 2 rounds though, surely.
No, he finished 3 under. He shot
Oh,
four
okay.
under in round four to get it under par and get it to 3 under. He finished a tie for 14th.
Right. Okay. I actually did not pay attention to Bubba throughout the whole tournament, but there you go.
Yep, yep. So if I just go through come back to Rory. So 43 strokes gained putting, 10 around the green, short game. One short game in approach play, 7 off the tee, and in total, Rory was number 1 in total strokes gained.
Yeah. Right.
So I find that a really interesting dynamic that just as much as we've talked about it and we know it from the data that it plays out time and time again that the guys who are the best ball strikers, they may not have the best week putting, but you can still go out there and manage to win. Whereas the guys at the top of the putting, if they're not also up there in strokes gained, approach and off the tee, they're not really going to finish anywhere that high. I mean, but Bubba Watson, so strokes gained approach 43, strokes gained off the tee 25.
That's right. That's right. You've got to get it to the green before you can putt it.
Yep. So
bottom line.
I find those data sets to be really interesting. Bryson. So if we go through his strokes gained, so strokes gained putting 20, strokes gained around the green first.
Yeah.
Strokes gained approach play 51.
Wow.
And strokes gained off the tee 2.
Yeah. Okay. He was bombing it. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. So I think it just shows that, and what Rory said is that those guys who really dominate from a approach play are the ones who, generally speaking, end up at the top of the leaderboard, and this was certainly the case this week. Absolutely.
Well, there you go. We've learned something there.
Yeah. So just a couple of sort of, just
data does not lie.
Little picks and little notables that I thought were quite interesting.
They certainly are. They kind of lead me on to a couple of the questions that I've got. Certainly one in particular, which was I want to talk about 13. So on 13, Rory made the decision to play 3-wood off the tee, lay up, and then infamously hit his third into the drink. Now, I don't know. What are your thoughts? Is that the right strategy? Was that overly defensive? At this point, he did have a lead of, what was it, about 4 shots at the time. For someone with Rory's power, should he have been playing driver off the tee, get there in 2? I'm not sure it was the right strategy.
I don't disagree with you. However, given what Rory had said, that he was struggling off the tee and felt like he was struggling off the tee, in saying that, he still, came 7th in off the tee. So, but bad for Rory is not terrible. Look, if I would have liked to have seen him take driver off the tee and just see where it goes.
Yeah,
see whereabouts he was after his tee shot. At least give himself the chance of knocking it on in 2, because, with Rory's length, he could have hit, mid-iron at worst into the green if he'd ripped it around the corner.
That's the point. And one of the things with 13, as extra backdrop for this question, is 13's been lengthened. Again this year, considerably from where it's been in previous years. Now, that's completely changed the perspective of the hole. And actually what's happened has been the average score on 13 has decreased since the lengthening rather than increased. Right. And the reason for that is that it's become, according to a lot of commentators about the game, it's no longer become a decision hole off the tee to be concerned about putting your drive into the pine straw up the right side. Players now can't reach that on that straight line up the right side unless you go well right. So it is an easier driving hole because it's longer than what it used to be. Right. You don't actually have to bend it around the corner so much. So that, with that backdrop, to me makes it strange that the best driver of the golf ball in the game at the moment, even though he's having an off day making him the 7th best in the world, decides to not pull his biggest weapon on that hole and give himself a chance to get there in 2. And because the other thing strategically with this is you put your drive down there, you go for the green in 2, you miss the green and you go in the water with your second, you're dropping 3, and you still got an opportunity to make a pitch and a putt for par. The problem is when you bring the water in on the 3rd shot instead of the 2nd shot, an error the further along the shot count is worse because it's harder to recover. So at that point, you've hit your 3rd in the water, you're dropping 4, and then you've got a hole out for par. So
I guess that the expectation around hitting your 3rd into the water from 82 yards
is low, sure. But it happened.
I know, but I don't think that was top of mind in Rory's strategy.
Sure. But yes, it still happened. I just feel that it was possibly as much as an obvious execution error as it was, but I just feel like it's a strategy error, I think, on that one. Then the no-brainer decision on the tee box for Rory is pull the big dog and rip one down there.
And Rory is a very aggressive player, and generally speaking, he takes the aggressive option. So while I understand in the moment the decision-making process that he would have gone through, did that then take him so far away from his game that he obviously then made an error as a result? So...
Well, I think so. I think so.
A good point.
I think so. And I think where we saw Rory play his best was when he was being aggressive, as we talked about before, when he had to pull off a great shot, and he was making something happen. Where he played at his worst was when he was being conservative and defensive, and in particular that was with putting. But, so I feel like that was all part of it. Sort of on the bandwagon of the mental side of things, another question that we haven't talked about, but I do want to ask you about, is how important do you think that Rory's recent relationship with Dr. Bob Rotella has been in this breakthrough?
Yeah, look, and that was one thing that, again, we talked about that in the in the chat group. Not only during the Masters, but in the lead up to the Masters, and I think very important. I certainly think that Bob Rotella, he's been in the game a very, very long time and has worked with some of the best players in the game. So I think it's been a really good thing for Rory to have Bob Rotella on his side. I think he needed it. I mean, you look at Wyndham Clark and what he did when he engaged a sports psychologist and had someone on his side. I mean, that he said that was a critical part of him winning the US Open a couple of years back. So if Rory hadn't been I don't know if Rory's previously worked with a sports psychologist, but certainly engaging one seems to have put himself in a very, very good mindset. And he was in a great mindset all week. I mean, after he finished the first round with a couple of doubles in his press afterwards, he said, I'm not going to let a couple of bad shots dictate the rest of the week for me, and that's such a great mindset to have, and set himself up for, then 266s. So I think that, I think Bob Rotella was probably a critical part of that.
I would agree. I think we should take some credit for this, because go back and listen to some previous episodes, and certainly our discussion around the meltdown at Pinehurst, we shouted from the rooftops to Rory that he needed to get himself a sports psychologist on board. Yep. Clearly he is a friend of the Missing Links Golf Show and a pilgrim, and he heard that, and he's gone and made the appropriate changes. You're welcome, Rory. I'm glad we could be of assistance in some small way in getting you over the line for the Grand Slam. But you're 100% right, and I think it's that specifically is one of the lessons that we as everyday golfers can take out of this tournament, and that is don't let a couple of bad shots dictate your feeling about the whole round. And you know, that reminder that golf is a series of unrelated moments, not a chain of events. You know, each shot is an individual moment that's not linked to the one before it or the one after. Another one as well, which I kind of draw from Justin Rose, is that he, even when he was, you know, 3 and 4 shots back, he never stopped trying. He knew that he was dealing with imperfect information, that Rory could just as easily drop shots as he could gain shots. And the only thing that Rosie could do was to play every shot that was in front of him as well as he could and try and post the best round that he could in the clubhouse. And I can promise you that when he finished at 11 under, as much as he was hoping that might jag him a playoff, I don't think he was expecting it.
Yeah. Well, he talked about that in his presser, and he said that he didn't look at the leaderboard all day.
That is a remarkable show of strength. Given
how big the leaderboards are around some of the tees and some of the greens at Augusta.
Yeah.
He said that as he walked off the 17th green, he said to his caddy, "How are we going? Where are we?" And his caddy said, "We're tied for the lead." That was the first he knew that he was anywhere near it. And he said that when he got onto the 18th green before his putt, he had a look at the leaderboard. And that's when he knew that this putt means a lot. And when he made it, he said it's, and that's what he said. He said, you know, to be in that position, be in that situation, and not have the moment get the better of me. In fact, the opposite, rise to the occasion and make the putt. He said, like, how can he be disappointed? Like, you know, he's
and he cannot be. He cannot be disappointed at all. You know, it was an incredible performance and so thoroughly well deserved for such a nice guy. No question. No question. But again, I think that is something for us weekend golfers to take away from it, is the fact that you can't time travel to what the score is going to be at the end of the round. You can't worry about what everybody else is doing, where you might sit on a leaderboard. You play the shot that's in front of you.
Yep. And look, this is, and I mentioned earlier, I think I highly recommend to the Pilgrims, go and watch both of those presses and just listen to what these guys are saying. There's so much that can be taken away from what they're saying, what their mindset is, and just the perspective that they see, well, not only the week, but golf in general from. Like, it's incredible. I as much as the round was a roller coaster, listening to the two presses afterwards, I learned just as much, if not more, from that than what I learned through the 4 rounds.
Amazing. I'll have to check them out. I'll definitely do that, and ideally do that before we tee off in the Macquarie Cup in around about 48 hours' time for 2025.
Well, one of us are anyway.
Oh, what's the update, Andy Walker?
Yeah. Should we do a spoiler alert at this point?
I feel like by the time this goes to air, people are going to know. Yeah.
Look, Pilgrims, I'm trying to show some resilience at the moment because I've had a bit of a recurrence of the wrist injury, so I'm not in a place where I can play golf at the moment. So I'll be traveling out to Dubbo and being on the bag for my podcast partner, Mr. Stephen Hinks.
This is exciting, though. It really is. I think there's a few things about this, right? Like, it's taken me a little bit of time to come to grips with the concept of having someone watching my game so closely throughout the round. You know, like, and it is different to a normal round of golf. We're going off topic, but I think it's time to wrap up the Masters episode anyway and talk about ourselves.
I think we've covered it.
I think we've pretty much covered it. That's going to be interesting. I am looking forward, though, to having someone to problem solve and talk things through with. I think that will be good. someone whose opinion that I actually value, to, kind of bounce ideas off and thoughts off, and certainly get reminders to stay in the moment in some of those elements. But it changes the dynamic, but it also gives us an opportunity potentially to capture a little bit of content as we go around. So we'll see how that pans out.
Yep. No, it's going to be a good weekend, and I'm looking forward to it. And I'm sure you'll do well. And unfortunately, you won't get a chance to beat me off the stick this Macquarie Cup.
No, I won't. I'm feeling good though. I feel like I'm underdone. I'm very underdone. I have not played a lot of golf. I think I've played 2 competitive rounds of golf this calendar year.
Yep.
But I feel like my swing's in a good place.
Well, I was feeling actually pretty good sort of, up until a week or so ago when I tried to play in the comp at my local club and only got through 5 holes before my wrist just completely gave up the ghost, and now having scans and seeing doctor and physio and all the rest. Good. But we're trying to get to the bottom of it. But I actually felt really good, and I'd actually hit a couple of really good shots before. It was actually the 4th. It was my tee shot on the 4th that did it. And then, first time in 30 years, I've actually had to pull out of a golf round due to injury.
Tough. That's tough.
I was pretty gutted. But look, it is what it is. And again, I think it's one of those moments of, to be able to, it's an opportunity to show some resilience and, just focus on getting back on track.
It is. Anyway, Pilgrims, we will keep you posted next episode on how the Macquarie Cup goes. We'll follow up a review of the Masters with a review of the Macquarie Cup. Two very similar,
love it.
Very similar events. But I think Andy Walker, that's
slightly different prize money.
Slightly different prize money, yes. Anyway, that is what it is. So thanks for the thoughts on the Masters. An incredible event. I still think it's going to go down as one of the greatest majors of all time.
Yeah, I do as well. And I as I said, I can't tell you how happy I am that Rory's done it. I think that I hope it opens the door for him, because I would love to see him go on and win another 2, 3, 4 majors. I think, to be able to, for him to get to double figures, to get to 10 majors, I think would just be a phenomenal effort, and would just, it would go down as one of the, if not the greatest sporting comebacks and overcoming adversity
I think so.
All time.
I think so. So with that backdrop, Andy Walker, for the Pilgrims, what is there left to do?
Only one thing left to do, what we do each week. Rock out, Pilgrims.
Nice. Thanks for listening to us today. We love hearing from our Pilgrims, so please reach out to us through any of the links in the show notes. We know golf is hard, so we hope we can help you shoot better scores and inspire you to keep trying. Rock on, Pilgrims.